This conference will now be recorded.
We're still waiting, Mary.
Okay. I think I might have gotten out and didn't mean to, so I think I gotta go.
No, I see you. I
You're
can
in.
hear you.
Okay, then I gotta figure out how I get my screen back. Oh, there we go. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Mary.
Oh, Randy Cook is present.
Randy Cook.
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Are you still a member, Randy?
Well, I got the notice.
Oh, I guess I haven't updated the notice. Sorry.
Yeah, because I think Frank had indicated, I think it's in the minutes from a prior meeting, that he had said that Randy didn't want to serve, so, and he,
I
another
didn't know
term.
exactly when my term was up.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't either.
Does he serve
And,
until he's replaced, Mary?
What'd you say,
Mary,
Bill?
can you hear me?
Go ahead, speak again.
Does he serve until he's replaced?
Believe so, yes. So I
Okay,
think we're fine with him.
Okay, then we can call the meeting to order. Could I have a roll call, please?
Sorry, Emmett,
yes.
Eubank, Koning, McDougal,
Yes.
Sedaris, Van Sickle,
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, you've all received the minutes from the September 28th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections?
There's just one small typo, but there's the word B-E instead of to on something that was attributable to me, but it's a minor thing, so I think we can let it slide.
Where was that at?
I'd have to try to open something up,
Oh,
and I may not be able to get back. Let me see if I can find it again.
You said it should be B instead of 2?
No, it says B.
Oh, okay. It is Kelly on, page 2 of 4, and it
Okay.
is the second paragraph of number 6. Mr. Emmert recommended to change it B instead of the word to, T-O.
Yeah, I see it.
oh, okay.
Any other changes or corrections? Not, a motion's in order.
Move to approve.
Second. Roll call.
Who was the second?
McDougal, I believe.
Okay. Emmert,
Yes.
McDougal,
Yes.
Van Sickle,
Yes.
Cook.
And
Bill?
before we get started, Chuck, if I could just state for the record that this is a remote meeting pursuant to the legislative authority to do so. At this time, because of the pandemic, and until we get a further order that says remote meetings aren't allowed, the remote meetings in essence are allowed, and was posted as such, so that people could participate remotely should they choose to do so. And Kelly, where's your physical presence? Are you at home or at the office?
I'm at home.
Okay. Just as a reminder, that for all of these meetings, one of the requirements is that a member of the public body be physically present. Kelly's not the public body, but that a member of the public body be physically present at the village office for the meeting. I know nobody comes, but I'm just stating what the rules are.
Thank you. I don't believe we have a conflict of interest, do we? No
No,
one has signed up for public comment.
No.
So the first item on our agenda is to define the variances. Mary has sent, I think, what day was it? About maybe the 10th, about a list of the three variances, and she calls it the Ackerman property variance language. Did you all receive that?
Yes.
yes.
No.
And Kelly, is that something that you could forward to Randy Cook? The reason I didn't give it to him is because it was my understanding he wasn't on the zoning board anymore. So I apologize for that.
When was that sent, Mary?
It was 10, I believe it was 10/10, because I just had to go reprint it.
Okay.
It was 10, it was the 10th.
And it didn't have just that on there. It had the proposed ordinance that the village board was going to consider, but the third attachment was the variance. So that's really all that, you need to be concerned with, Mr. Cook.
Okay.
Only a few lines.
The attachment says Ackerman property variance language.
Okay. Okay.
And Randy, are you on a computer or a phone?
I'm on my phone.
Okay. Because I can also, did you find it or not, Kelly?
I'm just not logging into my email, so.
Oh, okay. I was going to see, we can take a scan of it too, I think. Off my phone.
Okay. I believe I found the email, so I'll forward it right now.
Okay.
If it will cooperate. Okay. 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 I have sent it to Randy. Okay. I've sent the email.
Yeah. Which one of the attachments is it?
Should be the last one. I think it has the word variance in it.
It says
Yes.
Ackerman property variance language.
Okay.
Yeah, and the variance is spelled wrong. I corrected that today. I saw that.
I've got it.
Okay. You all set, Randy?
Yeah.
All right. The first variance concerns the milled blacktop being used on the site. The thing I think we should be careful of when we give the variance is that the requirement is that HMA or concrete shall be utilized for the driveway / access ways on site. We are meaning that the milled blacktop should be used or milled asphalt, what do you want to call it, should be used on the site, but the entry way between our Swift Street pavement and the lot line has to be HMA or concrete and built to Winnebago standards, and the same for the exit between their lot line and our pavement on Main Street. I don't want to misconstrue that we're saying that that area can be also milled blacktop. Because in the village and the engineer's earlier letter, especially from Chad, said that that has to be as per our standards. Is there any comment?
Well, it looks like the way this is written that the recycled or milled blacktop can be used instead of the concrete entranceway.
That's the point. That's my point.
Yeah.
The milled blacktop can be used on the site, but not for whether, I guess it, how do we find access and entryway or exit?
I think it's covered by the fact that it's saying it's on the site, because from what otherwise I heard you say, but the entranceway between Swift Street pavement and the lot line has to be
Well-
HM, right?
Yeah, that's the village's property. So maybe that is defined enough as on site is takes care of it.
Well, I think it's maybe not a bad idea to add the language that you had, you know, that to say, however, if I'm reading, if I took it down correctly, however, the entryway between the Swift Street pavement and the lot line has to be HMA or concrete, and built to county standards, and the same for the village lot line and pavement on Main Street.
Yeah, it would be to villages, Winnebago Village standards.
Oh, okay, Winnebago Village, sorry. Okay. We could add that, that would maybe clarify it.
I think we should.
Because I know we have to go through and then determine if these would even be eligible for a variance, but I assume what you're doing right now is just getting the language down of what you think would be the variance, should it meet the requirements for a variance. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So what are we going to do now? Try and figure out if they meet it, how they can
Well, I
meet it?
guess, if you have anything different for either 2 or 3, as far as what language you want.
No, I don't think. For me, 2 and 3 look all right.
And one thing, Chuck, before we get into that too, and I know you are correct that a public hearing for variances is listed in our UDO as a requirement. I know that they used another entities as an example, but I did look at the state statute, and of course we have to go by our UDO. But according to the state statute, if we are under 500,000 in population, we would not normally have to have a public hearing on a variance. Again,
Maybe
I
we
don't
should-
know.
Maybe we should change our UDO then, huh?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it's certainly up to, you know, up to the board of what they want to do. But when you mentioned that about the UDO requiring that we have a public hearing, I just did not remember that from the past. And in the statute, it says in municipalities of less than 500,000 population, the regulations authorized by this Division 13 may provide that the Board of Appeals or corporate authorities may determine and vary their application in harmony with the general purposes and intent and in accordance with general or specific rules, blah, blah, blah. And it does say that you have to go according to the standards that we're going to be talking about. Where it talks, there's another section that has on variations. This is 65 ILCS 5/11-13-6. That one says no variation shall be made by the Board of Appeals in municipalities of 500,000 or more population, or by ordinance in municipalities of lesser population, except in a specific case and after a public hearing before the Board of Appeals, of which there should be notice, blah, blah, blah. So it could be that Rochelle that was used as the template, has its variances dealt with by the village board. And if that is the case, according to the statute, because it says if it's a municipality, does it by ordinance of a lesser than 500,000 population, then they have to have that public hearing. So just letting you know that we do have a UDO that says we need a public hearing on the variance.
So then we can set that public meeting tonight probably when we're
Correct.
ready.
Yeah, I mean, I just think we need to flush out to make sure that these variances as suggested meet the requirements. Because otherwise you're really holding a public hearing for nothing if they don't meet the requirements.
That's right. That's right.
Mary, Article 12.10 does require 3 parking stalls for storage unit businesses.
Let me look, I got the UDO right here. Let me just look.
Yes, it does. There's a big chart, Bill, that lists all the different businesses and what's required for parking.
Why would you require parking spots for a storage facility where they're going to park right in front of their unit?
That's what I was thinking, Randy.
Well, also there's lockers on the end of each building where you couldn't even drive in if they were parked in front of it.
Well,
But it's
I
not
think,
like you have the public coming in.
right, but I think that's why we put we put that language in the variance, because it says, however, this variance is only provided the property is used for a storage facility and there's no office on the site of the storage facility. As I recall, that was the reason why you were amenable to the variance, because typically they would, if they had an office, there would be some place for cars to park, customers. But there is not going to be an office on site.
Right.
So this variance is saying only if they continue that situation of having no office on the site.
Which makes good practical sense. Well, when we start trying to meet the requirements for a variance, I guess, how do we do it?
Well, let's look at, when we get to the requirements.
He can furnish parking. There's no reason he can't. It's right at the edge of his property.
So there would normally be 4 here because minimum of 3 and then 1 for every 50 storage units, that he's got 64. So that would require 4 parking stalls.
And these are the parking stalls on the adjacent property?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know the question at the time was, what happens if the property's sold? Well, then maybe he has to sell the parking stalls at the same time. The ordinance does call for off-site parking.
It does provide for off-site?
Yes. Remote even.
So I guess if we go through each of the conditions for the variance, is you have to find that there are special circumstances applying to the land or buildings for which this variance is sought, which circumstances are peculiar to such land or buildings and do not generally apply to land or buildings in the vicinity. Whether you want to handle them one at a time or all together, I guess the question is for whether it's just variance number 1 or any of the 3 discussed variances, do you feel, because we have to have specific findings about what are those special circumstances?
That's the problem I'm having with 2, but do we actually need a variance then if you can have remote parking?
And then,
No, you don't.
I guess that's why I'm wondering what 12.10 actually says.
oh, sorry, I got waylaid. 12.10 is basically just a chart. It says, hold on. Says the minimum number of off-street parking spaces required for specific uses shall be as shown on table 12.1, which is reproduced below. For uses not listed in the table, the village building official shall determine the required number of spaces based on those required for a similar or equivalent use. And it has everything listed, and I'm looking for,
It's way towards the end.
well, they have, I'm sorry, Chuck, what did you say?
I think it's way towards the end of the chart.
Well, there's one under, I'm just looking, it says under industrial, including storage, wholesale, and manufacturing.
No, there's one for storage units.
Okay, I'm looking, self-storage, sorry. Self-storage, and then it has 3 entire use plus 1 for every 50 storage units. That's why how we come up with the 4.
Okay, now what's the language about remote or off-site?
And Chuck,
I believe that's I think that's in another, in the same article, possibly in another place. Where it talks about parking.
yeah, we have, hold on. Are you talking maybe check permitted accessory parking? Accessory parking facilities not on the same zoning lot as the principal use being served may be located in any zoning district except as follows. And then it indicates parking facilities accessory to an apartment use shall be located only in District 2M, except as otherwise approved in accordance with this article. Parking facilities accessory to a business, institutional, or manufacturing use may be located only in Districts 3, 4, or 5, provided such parking facilities are approved in accordance with the procedures set forth in this article and subject to the following conditions. The parking lot shall be accessory to and used in conjunction with 1 or more non-residential uses located within districts 3, 4, or 5, or in an adjoining district. B, the parking lot shall be used solely for the parking of passenger automobiles. C, commercial repair work or service of any kind shall not be conducted in the parking lot. D, signs of any kind other than those designating entrances, exits, and conditions of use shall not be maintained on said parking lot. E, each point of ingress/egress to a parking lot serving such a facility shall be at least 20 feet from any adjacent property located in a residential district, except where ingress/egress is provided from a public alley or public way separating the residential areas from the proposed parking lot. And F, all parking lots shall be screened from adjoining residential uses by means of landscaping. And then it goes into the schedule I read to you.
I guess I didn't hear the remote. Maybe I just wasn't following you.
Well, meaning that these are permitted accessory parking facilities not on the same zoning lot.
Okay,
Is
so
that-
you believe that the required 4 parking spots under the village ordinances could be on other property?
Correct, that's the way that this reads. 'Cause
If it
in,
reads that way, then why do we need a variance? Because he can give parking on his adjacent lot.
That's right.
yep,
So there wouldn't need to be a variance, and if somebody else bought the property from him, now they've got a problem. They have to have an agreement with him to still allow parking on his adjacent lot, or they're gonna have to get parking on the lot in question. So for his using it, he's shown that he's got parking, remote parking on an adjacent lot, so why have a variance? That takes care of our having to meet the requirements. So if the ordinance actually allows it, I don't know that we need a variance. I think we'd be better off not having a variance, number 2.
I
because
agree
there's,
100%.
yeah, there's nothing in the list of schedule of required parking that says that it has to be on that land. And as I was reading, right above that is the permitted accessory parking. So I think we're good with that.
Okay, I
Anyone
think
else
we
have
probably
an
go
opinion?
through the requirements one by one.
Okay, so does anybody have though any issue with number 3, the wording? I guess before we do that? Because we're taking out 2, correct?
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay. So as long as we read 2, might as well read 3 just to make sure that there's nothing
Okay.
that would
Does there
somehow.
need to be landscaping on Swift Street?
What's that question again, Bill?
Does the village ordinances require landscaping on Swift Street? Because this just talks about Main Street.
The
So you
ordinance
got
is,
property on a corner, you have to have landscaping on both streets for a corner lot.
well, you have a public right of way, which is not the road on Main Street, which our people say we cannot have landscaping there because of the utilities.
No, I understand that, that's fine, and we can, I think, make some findings of fact. I just want to know if we also have to worry about Swift Street, or do we need a variance for landscaping on Swift Street, or does he not need to have landscaping on Swift Street according to our ordinances? Or 3, is he going to have landscaping on Swift Street?
No, there's
As for Main Street and the south end, I think we can do it. I'm just wondering about Swift Street. Are you following me, Mary?
I'm following you. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head the answer, so I'm gonna defer to Chuck if he knows, you know, because where that's at, that I might find that language. Because I'll confess, I don't know this UDO backwards and forward.
Well, I believe it doesn't specify that there has to be landscaping on all sides of any facility. It says that we have to provide landscaping, but I see no reason to put any landscaping on Swift Street. There is no room for it there. Absolutely none.
But I think what Bill is saying is if it is required, I mean, that would be reason for a variance if there's no room. That makes it something special about the character of the land that would not allow it to be done. But I will have to look to see if I can find if it's
We're giving a
required in the
variance
first
for
place.
Main Street, which implies Main Street would otherwise have to have landscaping, meet landscaping requirements.
Right.
And if Main Street would require it, why wouldn't Swift Street? That's my question, Chuck.
Yeah, I understand. I think the reason that we talked about either Main or the south end of the lot is that there would be some areas that could be landscaped.
Well, I guess what is the landscaping requirements according to the UDO?
I'm not that familiar with it.
I didn't understand you, Chuck.
Chuck, you don't know what,
So I'm not that familiar with the landscaping ordinance.
Okay.
But we can look at
so
it.
and what I can do. Go ahead, Chuck.
You know, what number is landscaping offhand?
What I'm looking for. Should have brought a second computer because then I could search the UDO by word. Okay, let's see. And it's in the table of contents, it isn't one of, it's not by itself.
Not
Thinking
one
it's
by
gonna- No, it's
No.
not, in the table of contents, landscaping is not listed by itself. Like we have appeals and variances. It's probably gonna be under subdivisional land, Article 8, I would guess.
Well, we'll go to Article 8.
And I don't see it under that either. How about 6? That's the
6 is zoning.
zoning. Yeah. The village has a landscape ordinance, but this particular property would be covered under the UDO.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I'm gonna minimize this and I'm gonna go into my, hopefully, gonna go into my, oh no, I guess I can't do that. No, never mind, I can't. I can't remote into my office at the same time. I wanted to get one
Well-
electronic version.
12.16, there's some landscape requirement.
Which one is that, Chuck?
12.16,
12.16?
I think it's for parking.
See. Okay. Seeing what that,
This lists the various trees you can use, and it should be
yeah,
to preserve the appearance and character of the neighborhood through screening effects, et cetera, mostly for parking.
I'm not seeing anything that says, landscape requirements adjacent to streets, or any parking lot lies adjacent to any public street, the entire frontage along said parking or loading area excluding curb cuts or other access ways shall be landscaped and screened as follows. landscaping requirements for side and rear yards, landscaping requirements for interior areas, additional requirements for large parking lots, but that's if you got 300 or more stalls.
When any parking lot is adjacent to a side or rear yard and landscaping is not otherwise required, the side or rear setback yards shall be landscaped, et cetera, et cetera. This is mostly for big parking lots.
Right, because they talk about landscaping requirements for loading and storage areas and all other vehicular use. Yeah, it really doesn't answer the question.
No.
Does Jason's plans call for landscaping along Swift Street?
No.
But the question, I guess the issue is there a requirement for landscaping?
Mm-hmm.
If there isn't, he doesn't need any variance. And if there's no requirement for landscaping along Main Street, he doesn't need a variance for it. He just can't do it. If there's utility easements, that's different than getting a variance from something he has to do. So again, I question, is there a need for a variance?
Well, I think the reason landscaping come up, thinking back, is that when our engineer reviewed everything, I don't know what he was looking at. I think the only landscaping that can be used is maybe around the sign in the back.
That can be used or that's required?
It has to be.
I don't think it has to be. I don't know where it says that it has to be.
If there's no has to be, then there's no need for a variance.
I understand.
And Chuck, are you thinking that these suggestions for a variance or that of the requirements themselves came from Seth, the village's engineer?
But he made a large list of things, and I'm looking through some papers to see if I could find it, but I'm not sure I can. Because there could be some conflict between our existing ordinance on landscaping and the UDO.
Right, but our existing ordinance on landscaping wouldn't apply to this.
No, it wouldn't apply.
So
Is
even
there
if
really
there,
a need to address the variances tonight, Mary?
we don't have to. I mean, especially now in light of these various questions that are coming up. Just the,
Right,
I
I
mean,
think given these questions, why don't you find out what has to be,
okay.
if he does need variances? If there's something that he's supposed to do that he can't.
Right, I'll communicate with the village engineer. I'll look again at the UDO and see, and then I can communicate with all of you via email to indicate that. Because the whole point of today, tonight, because we have to have a public hearing anyway pursuant to our UDO, was just to determine, do we even need a public hearing? Or does it, I was thinking in terms of, does it meet the requirements for a variance? But you're bringing up good points of, are they even variances that are required? And I do kind of remember what Chuck is saying from, don't have it in front of me, but that there was something from the village engineer about different requirements. Where those are coming from, I honestly don't know.
Or were those more restrictions that he would not be able to landscape that because of the utilities?
Right, but that's different, as we mentioned, of course, from a
Right.
variance.
But there would have to probably be a variance for, your number one. Now, is HMA, is that commonly referred to as blacktop?
Hot mixed asphalt, yes.
Okay. And this goes into what I was asking at the other meeting, is there something about the topography which is going to cause more water flow than otherwise? Or is it just the case that he's going to have so much blacktop that it's going to catch so much water that that's going to cause a runoff problem, which is why you want the milled, because if I understand you correctly, you're saying the milled blacktop it'll soak down into as opposed to running off.
Yes, it'll eliminate some of the runoff.
Okay, is there anything about the swales on the property which will make the runoff a little bit faster or more of a problem, more problemsome? That's a real word.
Well,
That's what I was looking at to try to get the variance for that. I've got other ideas.
the other concern that the engineers had is that there's going to be enough blacktop that they wanted to increase the slope so it could run off faster. So the more they can catch, the less has to run off. And that's where the milled asphalt comes in.
Say that again.
The
Chuck?
engineer was out advocating, I think it's come up at a meeting before, that the building should be raised to increase the slope to permit more runoff. In other words, to move it off the property sooner. So if we can soak out 10% or 15 or whatever it means, that's less to be run off of there.
Well, why did he want to raise it to run it off faster?
So it doesn't pool, build up, and maybe run into the buildings, you know?
Okay, is this property low? Is the land kind of low?
It's
Which
level.
causes-
At the moment, it's level.
Okay.
And I don't know what it is now because they've been moving dirt around like mad. In other words, they're stripping it off so they can build up with the gravel and so forth for the underlayment.
But part of the problem is the square footage of blacktop, correct?
Correct, exactly.
And what's unique about this property is we are changing zoning to a business use, but the only business use it can be used for is storage. And storage units are going to have a lot more square footage of blacktop, or a higher percentage of the lot will be blacktop than if it was just a normal business.
Correct. Yeah, 3 Drive.
That uniqueness, which is causing the water problem, which makes the milled a solution that other properties would not have, because other properties zoned business do not have a requirement that they have to be storage units, and therefore they would not have to have so much square footage of blacktop, a higher percentage of blacktop. I'm stretching things, but that's what I came up with, Mary.
Got it.
So that's what's unique about this property, is the special use. That can only be used for that purpose. I don't think I have, I don't think I got low topography or swales or anything to help me out. You guys understand where I'm going with it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Greg
exactly.
and Dennis?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, is there anything else that anybody else can come up with? We can at least say that is arguably qualifies for number one.
Yep, that's special
believe so.
circumstances.
Can we go back to the landscape for a moment? Mary, I found where Seth Grunewald quoted Article 12.16 for the, there should be a landscape plan provided. After discussion with the Public Works Director, there is not adequate space on the site or proper site distance for landscape to be installed. So this requirement of the UDO is not expected to be enforced. This decision is up to the council to approve. So it's Article 12.16 is the one we were looking at.
Right, and that, but as we saw it, landscape plan, all parking lots, loading, storage, and maneuvering areas for any uses other than single-family homes attached or detached or duplexes shall comply with these regulations. These landscaping regulations shall apply to single-family or two-family homes located in other than a residential zoning district if the property is also occupied by another principal use otherwise required to comply with these regulations. That's a single family or two family. See, and it keeps talking about the landscape plan for any parking lot.
Yeah.
Or what the landscape plan has to approve. So I need to talk to Seth, see exactly what he's getting at. What
Well,
he believes.
that was an email of August 17th.
Okay. Not the email of August 17th. Okay, I'll check into that. So are we back to the variance of number one?
Yeah, what's the second requirement?
That said circumstances are such that the strict application of the provisions of this ordinance would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of such land or buildings.
Obviously, if we're requiring him to put a storage unit business on there, he has to have enough square footage of blacktop for cars to drive through and up to the units. And if we require it to be if we require him to have that use and require him to have blacktop, we've got a runoff problem. So the same thing as number one.
Gotcha, okay. Finishing writing, okay. Anybody else have anything else for that particular circumstance or requirement?
No.
No.
And C says that the variance is granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals is the minimum variance that will accomplish the reasonable use of land or building in question.
I think it's the minimum. It's almost blacktop. What else could you do to help stop the runoff other than use the mill? Because the other would just cause a drainage problem.
Okay,
You
Then-
could use gravel, but it would be a dust problem.
gravel would be just, okay. Then D, the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of this ordinance and will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare.
I think it helps the area because it'll help reduce what would otherwise be more flooding or flood prone.
Okay.
He's also going to be better paved than the rest of the businesses around there.
It would be an upgrade, that's for sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Is there a reason why this milled asphalt is not part of the UDO as an accepted ground cover if gravel and cement are?
Gravel is not. I think
But
it's
you were just,
I think it's
Go ahead.
recently being used more popularly.
That might be something for the village to address and
Yeah.
change their ordinance to allow it. Because it seems to have benefits that the hot mix asphalt doesn't have. I think that's where Dennis was going possibly.
Yes.
But I don't know that that's our call right now.
Right.
That takes care of the 4 requirements, right?
right.
That we'd have to meet. So that's the best I could come up with.
And that's
But I do
assuming
think
that
right
don't
now we
need a
have to have a variance for 1 unless the village was to change its ordinance to allow the milled.
yeah, okay.
Which actually might be a better idea long run. I think I kind of agree with Dennis on that. If in fact it's a good alternative. I guess, what's the negative on the mill? Do you know, Chuck?
Pardon?
What's the negative of using the mill as opposed to hot mix asphalt? Just in general,
Well,
why is one better than the other?
it's not solid. You know, chip and seal is what you see on the county roads. That's solid. No water goes through it. It's designed to shed water off of it, so that the base of the road doesn't get wet and get soggy.
Okay.
And this is basically like using gravel, except it gives you a smooth, hard top, if you will, and doesn't cause dust and so forth. That's one of the big advantages, as well as the price.
Well, I guess I'm confused because you just said it's not like the county roads, which are solid, but you just then said this is solid.
Well, it's solid as compared to gravel. If you can understand what I mean,
Okay.
it doesn't move around.
So, right, but why would we want hot mix asphalt as a general purpose or a general statement as opposed to this mill? Is asphalt better in some way, the hot mix asphalt?
It's better because it's going to act like the chip and seal does. And any roads that you're going to travel on, you want to correct it and make sure that it doesn't get water into the base of the road, which is the gravel and the dirt below it.
Oh, so it would deteriorate a lot faster.
Pardon?
It would deteriorate faster then.
You mean the ground asphalt?
Yes.
Yes. You'd never use it on a road because it would not be, number one, it would let the water through. Number two, it would move around like gravel would if you're at high speeds, etc. It's
Okay.
not designed for that.
Using this, I think, for parking spaces.
Parking lots,
Right,
interior
and so for a
drives.
parking lot, why not allow the milled all over? Is there a reason why you want to require hot mix in most instances, but allow milled just in some? That's where I'm trying to figure out, is there a negative for milled, or should the village just allow milled or hot mix, whichever the owner wants, for parking?
Well, you have to say that the hot mixed asphalt is, let's say, a prime surface as is concrete, whereas gravel or milled asphalt is a step below that because it doesn't have the strength to hold it together. Let's say if someone squeals their tires or something, you could probably throw some of it out of there. So it's just the grades of the surface that you're putting down.
So you think it'd be best for the village to keep hot mix asphalt as a requirement for its general parking on business properties?
Well, if you're going to have the parking lot for Sullivan's, I would rather it be hot mix asphalt. Because it's a more durable surface.
I was just curious. Well, after Dennis brought it up, I was thinking that myself. But as for the variance, at least we came up with one argument. And the engineers are basically saying we need it, given what we're requiring him to use his property for, because asphalt won't work. Or hot mix asphalt won't work. It'll cause a runoff problem. And we're requiring him to use it as a storage facility.
In this case, I believe that the milled asphalt is better.
Okay.
Are we going to say now for the number 2 variance that we're going to go with the off-site parking?
Well, that it's not necessary because off-site parking is allowed.
You were going to confirm, you were going to check that out though first, Mary, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I
Or do
read
you feel comfortable now saying that?
well, I feel comfortable. I mean, from what I've read, I'm going to do a word search just to be certain it's not covered again somewhere else. But from what I read in the proximity of those 2 sections, it certainly seems to me that they're allowing an accessory property to be used to satisfy a parking requirement.
That no variance would be necessary. All he has to show is he's got 4 parking spots, and he can get 4 parking spots on his property to the east.
Right.
Well, my question that concerns is sooner or later, if we are not going to require the variance, then we'll have to tell him he's got to furnish parking spots, which he agreed to before anyway.
Right.
Right. And then I have to determine in number 3 whether or not there are landscaping requirements, what they are, such that there would need to be a variance from them at all. As Bill mentioned, if they're not required, well, then nothing to vary from.
When we looked at those landscape requirements, they talked about single family and parking areas, but it doesn't say anything about business. And this is a business.
Right. And maybe there's something in another section. That's what I want to do the word search on and talk to Seth.
Sometimes in that UDO, there's kind of fractions here and there.
Yep.
Okay, are we finished with the variances for this evening?
I believe so. The only issue would be is when and if you want to set a public hearing for it, or if you want, I mean, because of course I can't advertise for it until we know the answer to these questions. Because you have to have some specificity in there about what the variances are for.
Well, I don't think there's any urgency for a public hearing, do you?
No. I'd rather get it hashed out and then we know exactly what we're having a public hearing on.
I'd rather do that also, and we can continue on our next meeting in November.
Okay. I'll work on that in the meantime.
Next item on the agenda is the solar ordinance that Mary sent to everyone, and the only reason it's on the agenda is that I wanted to remind everybody that Mary is looking for any review or suggestions to be included or what we don't like. She sent it also to the village board, and there's not much that we want to do with it at the moment except have everybody review it, and if there's problems, let her know. Correct, Mary?
That's correct. As I believe I mentioned in the email that when I had sent that out to everybody, was that the village's electrical inspector, Paul Happick, had come to a community development committee meeting and basically said he thought that there should be some permitting for the solar panels. And we're not talking about wind farms, or solar farms or anything like that. We're talking about individuals who have it on their individual residential property. And he said he gave me some samples of permits that different entities use. But of course, that all begs the question, you can't have permits for something you don't then have restrictions or you don't cover in an ordinance. And hence, that's the reason why I put together an ordinance for review to see if that's something that the village is interested in going with. So if you have any comments on them,
What you put together looks good, Mary.
I'm sorry, Bill, I didn't hear that.
What you put together looks good to me.
Okay.
I don't have it again.
Yeah,
Good.
and I had actually, Randy, I knew that when we had the other issue. So I texted Kelly to see if she could email it to you, but I'll make sure right after the meeting I get it emailed to you.
I sent it already.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
So you did get my text. Okay. I didn't know if you were too busy with the meeting.
Okay,
No,
I've
I
got
did
it.
it.
I have it.
Is there anything else that anyone would like to bring up tonight?
No, move to
Nope.
adjourn.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Roll call.
Cook,
Yes.
Emmert,
Yes.
McDougal,
Yes.
Fanchico,
Yes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. I'll be
Thank
back in
you.
touch with your answers.
Okay,
Good
bye.
night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.